Okay, we've actually made it to the last moment of step 2. I can't believe it. I'm excited though for summer ending and seeing where we go after that. But first, let's do growing. Early one afternoon, you found yourself in the living room with your family. It was another one of those summer days where it felt too hot to go outside, but it was too uncomfortable to do anything inside either. The air conditioner was cranked up as far as you could negotiate it, but everyone was still being pretty lazy. You, your moms, and sister were lounging around while the TV blared on in the backdrop, ignored by all of you. You specifically were dying on the carpet, cross-legged on the floor, perched on the arm of the couch, or draped over the coffee table. It depends. I might be spread eagle if it's like a silent protest on my part, like, or I might be sitting cross-legged on the floor. I will leave it up to the coin. Heads for spread eagle, tails for cross-legged. Hiya! Okay, we got tails, so we're gonna do cross-legged, I guess. Be more dignified today. You looked out the windows of the backyard. Not that there was anything of particular interest to watch. Elizabeth broke the silence with a loud groan. You glanced over. She was lying on her back over the couch, massaging her calf with one hand. Ugh. I feel terrible. I'm dying in this house and my legs hurt. Mom looked up from the magazine she'd barely been flipping through and frowned, concerned.
Could you have strained them somehow?
Elizabeth flailed briefly, then flopped onto her side with a heavy sigh. I don't know. It just hurts.
Sweetie.
Ma got up from her seat at the kitchen table and walked over to your sister. She did a light pat on Elizabeth's shoulder sympathetically.
I'm sorry you have to deal with that. Maybe it's growing pains. You could be taller by next fall.
Ugh. Elizabeth scoffed. She didn't look impressed by Ma's assessment. I'd rather be my height forever than deal with this. Actually, I had lots of leg pain in my tweens, and it didn't do me any good because I did not grow a single scintilla of an inch. So sometimes you just have leg pain for no good reason. Bleh. Mom walked over too, leaning against the back of the couch.
Kids, they grow up so fast. Soon Elizabeth will have a home of her own. Maybe even with a nice husband and some kids if she feels like it.
She sniffed loudly and wiped at her eye, but you could tell that it was just a bit. You tilted your head. Even though you knew Elizabeth liked guys, it was hard to imagine her with a boyfriend or husband. Well, maybe she'll get together with Jeremy. She only seemed invested in hanging out with her group of friends, not chasing after boys. Well, Mom must agree with you because she shook her head.
No.
Let's not exaggerate. She's still practically a child. But if you ever do pursue romance, Elizabeth, you can come talk to me about it. Definitely. We're always willing to lend an ear.
Elizabeth's features contorted in disgust.
No.
I am not talking to my moms about that.
Rude.
Mom's jaw dropped and she gasped in an exaggerated display of shock. Her hand came up to rest against her chest. Ma only grinned. She didn't look offended by Elizabeth's quick response at all.
It really wouldn't be so bad to come to us. I know what it's like to have a crush on a pretty boy or two.
Alright, Ma, I see you.
I don't, but I can listen anyway.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, crushes are crushes, I would imagine. Mom snorted at her own joke, while Ma burst into giggles. They were having a little too much fun at Elizabeth's expense. Elizabeth certainly wasn't feeling the amusement because she rolled her eyes and sat up.
Thanks.
I'm going back to my room. I'd rather melt alone, thanks. She strode off towards the staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time. Your mom stared after her, then turned to each other with raised eyebrows.
Whoops. Looks like we scared her off with all that romance talk.
Well?
We'll get her next time.
You watched them titter with some surprise. Obviously, your moms liked women, but you had no idea that Ma liked guys, too. Today was the first time you'd heard her say something like that. We're learning the Ma lore. Ma, you like guys and girls? Ma turned to you, happy to bring you into things now that you'd spoken up. She smiled and nodded.
That's right. I like both. But I like your mom most out of everyone. She's special.
Aww. Look at these two cuties. Ma's smile turned all soft in the corners, like it usually did when she looked at her. She pinched Mom's cheek lightly. Mom reached up to cup a hand over Ma's. Even when Ma stopped pulling her cheek, their hands remained clasped together. Should I leave you two alone, or...
You're fantastic.
Wow, that's very enthusiastic.
Thanks, Lonnie. I think most women have charm, but no one can hold a candle to you.
Aww.
Pamela.
Ma beamed, then kissed Mom on the cheek she'd been pinching before. Parents were embarrassing. Parents are embarrassing. But I do think it's very sweet. You smiled to yourself at the sight. No matter how often your moms expressed their feelings for each other, it was always nice to witness it. Ma looked back to you, letting Mom's hand go with a brief squeeze. She settled down next to you, and Mom followed soon after.
You know, I'm also here to listen to you whenever you're ready. That offer isn't just for Elizabeth. In fact, I think that talk might be needed sooner for you. After all, you already have someone, isn't that right?
Ma! Mom shook her head and elbowed Ma, but it was futile. She's like, I've been shipping the two of them together since they were 6.
Meddler?
Yeah, this was my reaction. Ma! Ma only giggled and smiled, not looking the least bit apologetic.
There's no rush, of course. You can take all the time you need to figure out what or who you want.
It's okay.
Don't think you have to stick with whatever you come up with right now, either. Life's nice like that. It can change and you can learn.
Mom nodded her agreement.
The two of us are happy to hear you out, and we may be able to relate better than you think. Still, we won't push the topic. At least most of the time.
She gave Ma the weakest scathing look possible while being unable to stop grinning. I'd rather pass. Yeah, I'll nod silently. I think that's probably what I would do in the situation. I'd be so embarrassed. You weren't sure what to say to that. Mom let out another exaggerated sniffle. It didn't take a genius to realize it was fake.
First Elizabeth, and now you, Molly. Do you have to grow up? Yes, children tend to do that from time to time.
Your parents quickly grew absorbed in their conversation about rearing kids. You took that as your cue to leave, getting up so you could spend some time alone in your room, too. They let you go without problem, so you made your way up the stairs. Nyom. You let out a sigh once you stepped into your room. It was just as sweltering in there as it was in the living room, possibly even a little warmer. You couldn't even open your window since it was hotter outside and you just let the AC out. Ugh, I would go to the beach. Pronto. Dive into that water. You dragged your feet as you crossed the room. You checked your current sweltering condition in the mirror as you passed by it. You thought back to the conversation you'd had downstairs about growing up and all that. After a moment, you stepped a bit closer to the mirror. You stared into it, then turned away from the surface to look down at yourself. You were definitely growing, all right. Yep, I'm gonna keep lying to myself. It was weird thinking about how you were now in comparison to what you'd been when you were younger. When it came to your body, it... Muscle definition, I wish. 13. I was chubby. I was not slender, I wasn't heavy, I wasn't scrawny. And I definitely didn't have muscle, so chubby it is. You shoved it to the side, your head still facing forward and continuing the self-evaluation from this viewpoint. At birth you were assigned female, yes. And... I definitely already had noticeable boobs. Basically, there was no mistaking it, even with your shirt helping to obscure your form. You had boobs now. Yep. It's just a fact. You ran a fingertip over your birthmark. That was something that had been consistent for you. You took a step backwards, finished with your impromptu inspection. You locked eyes with your reflection, cocking your head to the side. All things considered, you thought you looked fantastic. At 13, I don't know. Oh man, going back, I didn't really care until 15 how I looked. Not too much. I mean, I was always a little vain, but yeah, probably self-conscious. I would have been self-conscious for sure. It took you a moment to realize that you were frowning at yourself. You glanced away from the mirror. You shook your head roughly, putting thoughts of what you were turning into out of your mind. I'm turning into something! This was not the time to focus on such things. You had to find something to do in this heat. You shuffled over to your bed, collapsing onto the mattress, your brows scrunched up in thought. Time passed slowly, and to your annoyance, possible ideas about what to do were few and far between. You weren't sure how long it had been, but eventually you heard your mom call you from downstairs.
Molly! There's a call for you. Cove wants to come over. Is that all right?
You perked up at the words, sitting up in bed. You yelled back to her immediately. Yeah! You got to your feet and headed downstairs, eager to see your friend. You needed to go downstairs soon anyway, because your empty stomach told you it was almost time for lunch. Just as you reached the bottom of the stairs, you saw Mom put the phone back on the receiver. She glanced at Ma, leaning her hip against the kitchen counter.
What a pickle.
Don't start again!
Well, here comes trouble. We better prepare ourselves.
Ma clicked her tongue in clear disapproval of Mom's words.
He's such a good boy. Cove never wants to cause trouble. He can just be a bit thoughtless and impulsive. Oh, I know. He's very sweet, but that's what makes it more of a problem. If a stranger or some kid from school was egging Molly on to behave badly, I think we can both agree that she'd do the right thing in the end. But if Cove Holden got into a reckless mood and wanted Molly to be a part of the ride, can we really be certain of what call she'd make then?
I hate to admit it, but you got a point.
Yes.
I think so. Molly helps Cove settle down. He would have gotten himself in even more trouble without her.
We do balance each other pretty good. He gets me to do things that I wouldn't, and I get him to calm down.
Thanks.
You have a point. Look, all I'm saying is that I haven't forgotten that time when they were kids and Molly chased after Cove once he ran away.
That was years ago. I've changed, maybe. I like that they referenced that I did that. Ma just laughed. As she turned away, still snorting, her eyes met yours. She blinked in surprise, then waved at you with an easy grin. Oh, you were not having that conversation knowing that I was there. Well, this is awkward. Mom looked over, noticing you at the foot of the stairs as well.
Oh.
I didn't expect you to come down already, Molly. I just wanted to let you know what was happening.
Would I have called her out? I might have, I probably would have pretended I didn't. Yeah, it's okay. I just got here. From the way Mom and Ma exchanged amused glances, you got the feeling that they didn't believe you. Thankfully, they didn't correctly accuse you of lying.
Sure. Well, we'll just get out of the way. You and Cove take care.
You couldn't help but flush when Ma winked. Mom elbowed her, even as a smile tugged at her lips.
Honestly, this lady...
Your moms whispered amongst themselves as they went down the hall. Eventually, you heard the faint sound of their bedroom door shutting. This feels so much like Pride and Prejudice, when the Bennets were, like, trying to leave the room so that Jane and Mr. Bennet, is it not Mr. Bennet, Mr. Bingley. Jane and Mr. Bingley, just leave them alone so that he would propose to her. I feel like I'm in that situation right now. Guys! Now you were alone in the living room, tasked with waiting for Cove. And that was just fine with you. If it hadn't been so hot outside, you would have visited him at his house a long time ago. You took a seat at the kitchen counter and settled in for the wait. As expected, there was a knock on the door a few minutes later. Hey. When you got up and answered it, your neighbor was standing on the other side. He came in once you stepped aside to let him pass, giving a little wave. You greeted him as you typically did, which is with a wave, with a low five, with a nudge to the shoulder, with a noogie, with a hug. Probably with a wave. You waved back, closing the door behind him with your free hand. Cove sighed and wiped at his face a bit. You noted the sheen of sweat across his brow. He must be glad to be back in an air-conditioned place, even if he only had to walk across the street to get there. It must be obvious that you were confused by his visit because he answered your unspoken question.
I don't want to do anything. Not when it's like this.
He gestured vaguely to the humid air hanging around.
So...
I thought I could at least do nothing with you.
That is so sweet. That is so sweet. His words were nice and expressed real fondness for you in a strange sort of way, which was usually the case with Cove. Have you had lunch yet? I was gonna do it soon. He shook his head.
Not really.
I haven't really felt like eating because of the heat. I probably should have lunch. I didn't have breakfast this morning.
Yeah, I get like that sometimes too. I still don't really eat breakfast. My parents don't like it when I do that, though.
Mine don't either. They'll ask if I ate here when I go back home.
As one, you headed into the kitchen. You crossed your arms as you glanced around, wondering what you should scrounge up for a meal.
I don't want to eat anything that's warmed up. Is there something cold or not cooked?
Yeah. After a bit of back and forth, the two of you concluded that you should raid the fridge and cabinet in order to make sandwiches. That's what I was thinking. With that settled, you had planned to decide on the outside layers first. There was a wide variety to choose from, since everyone in your house had their own favorites. There was white bread, wheat bread, sourdough, mixed grains, gluten-free bread, and pita pockets.
Hey.
Could you take the grain one for me?
Sure. Somebody's healthy. You reached for the mixed grains, then made your decision. A lettuce wrap, cinnamon swirl bread. I know it's not very good for you, but it tastes amazing. And I like it for sandwiches, so I will have white bread. You pulled out the white bread too, setting both items onto the counter. Then you had to decide what main direction the sandwich would go in. I prefer savory to sweet. Something savory would make it feel like a real meal. As for the specific ingredients... Ooh, we got options. I prefer turkey to ham. So I'll do turkey with lettuce and red onions and cucumber and mozzarella cheese. Yep, that sounds good. For the finishing touch, you intended to top your sandwich with mustard, mayonnaise, pesto, hot sauce, salt and pepper, or ranch. Hit me up with that mustard. And that was everything. You nodded to yourself with a quiet hum, satisfied. The two of you bustled around the kitchen, opening and closing things in order to collect everything you needed for your individual sandwiches. You focused intently on assembling your own for the most part. When you were close to being done, though, you glanced over at your neighbor. Cove was putting his sandwich together delicately, his brow furrowed and tongue sticking out just barely. There were open jars of peanut butter and honey near his plate, as well as a banana peel. Nice. So he was making a peanut butter, banana, and honey sandwich on mixed grain bread. I mean... I've heard it tastes good, but I don't actually like peanut butter. So anything with peanut butter, I'm just kind of like, eh. I don't hate it, but I don't actively seek out peanut butter when I make sandwiches, so I think I'll just go the neutral option. It wasn't that surprising or interesting. Curiosity satiated, you turned back to your plate and finished your own creation. By the time you were done, Cove had already cleaned up his workstation. He turned to face you, studying your sandwich briefly. A small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. You guess it didn't look inedible to him, at least. Yeah, his doesn't look inedible either, it's just not something I'd make for myself.
Done?
Yeah.
Cool.
He waited as you quickly returned the ingredients and cleaned a few utensils, then the two of you collected your respective plates. You both agreed on heading upstairs to hang out in your room. You and Cove entered your bedroom while balancing your food on the plates. Nothing fell, so it was a successful trip. Nice. Cove took a seat on the ground, stretching out on the hardwood floor in an attempt to keep a bit cooler. Good thinking. He immediately took a big bite of his sandwich, chewed, then hummed happily.
This sandwich is really good. At least that's something.
At this point, you sat down and started on your own sandwich. This did not turn out as expected. Obviously, you were a pro at making sandwiches, obviously. He leaned back on his hands while chewing and glanced around. His every movement was sluggish.
Wanna do something?
It seemed the plan of not doing anything at all had already worn thin, despite his lack of enthusiasm. Like what? He rolled his head back, looking up at the ceiling.
What about Hangman?
Sure, why not? You put your plate to the side and pulled out some markers and scrap paper. As you laid everything on the floor, he scooted back to make more room in front of you. Cove picked up one of the markers with his right hand while keeping a half slice of sandwich in his left.
That's,
can I pick the phrase?
If you want to. He smiled briefly before he bent over the paper and began sketching the hangman frame. Then he stopped, pursing his lips in thought. He tapped the end of his marker against his cheek. You watched silently as Cove looked down at the paper, up at your face, and then off to the side in a loop. His marker kept tapping his cheek the entire time. You raised an eyebrow. He'd suggested the game and wanted to pick the phrase, but it looked like he didn't actually have anything in mind for it. Finally, he put empty lines on the paper to signify spots for letters.
Alright, you can start guessing.
I used to love playing Hangman. This is so cool! Even get like a special background for it. You peered over. His secret phrase consisted of 3 words. The first 2 had 3 letters and the last had 4. Okay. You thought hard about what your first guess would be. Enter 1 letter of the alphabet. Is there an E?
You got one.
After the first round, you were about to take another bite of your sandwich when a thought occurred to you. I wonder if anyone turned off the TV downstairs. The TV. It was on earlier, but no one was really watching. Then everyone started leaving the living room. I know I didn't turn it off. It might still be on downstairs with no one there. Cove smiled crookedly at that.
Oh.
Poor show. Playing with no one around to enjoy it. What was it?
You squinted off into the middle distance, trying to recall the show's name. I feel like it was some kind of crime-solving drama? Cove nodded sleepily. His eyes closed, then opened again with some effort.
Can you give any specifics? Maybe I can guess it.
Well... You rested your chin on your open palm, groggily thinking as hard as you could. I remember there was a woman with long... blonde hair, I think? She was the one solving crimes, like... as a detective or something. There were scenes in a police station. 'Cause someone got arrested? You lapsed into silence, the both of you thoughtful. Then Cove chuckled. It wasn't that funny, but you joined in the laughter anyway.
I don't know.
Me neither, and I just saw it. Okay, I feel like the middle word is the, or she. Let's do T. Okay, was not the.
Good guess.
Another round came and went, and Cove grumbled as he readjusted himself. His features were twisted in a grimace.
I feel so sticky. Ugh, I'm gonna be stuck to this floor forever now.
I'll have to charge you rent then. I would just smile. It was always funny to hear Cove be so dramatic. You smile to yourself, then you return to the game. Okay, so what about S? Oh, no S, so it's not she. It's not she, it's not the.
No, sorry. I'm gonna start adding the little person.
Not the little person. Cove spoke up once more, catching your attention. He was peering down at the piece of paper between you, his expression thoughtful.
You know, Hangman is kind of a creepy game. Why did people come up with it? Why did they play it?
Maybe it's what they had instead of real court trials back then. I'll have to look it up later.
Maybe.
Maybe I'll do that too.
That said, the two of you turned your attention back to the game. Oh, maybe it's the middle one is one. Something one bite? Oh? No, it's not one either. Dang it. But that's in the first thing. Okay. It's not one.
Yep, that's right.
By this point, Cove had finished his sandwich. Yours was almost gone too, but now you were getting thirsty. You brought it up to your neighbor. Should we go downstairs to get some drinks?
I was thinking that too, but I don't really want to get up.
Me neither. You looked over at him, narrowing your eyes with false suspicion. But hey, what happened to you not being able to get up ever again because you were stuck to the floor?
That's still true. I mean, we're not actually going, are we? I only thought about it.
You rolled your eyes and dropped the issue, defeated. Cove grinned a little at your disappointment over his victory. What else could it be? Not one, not the... What else is a three-letter word that ends in E? It's not she. It's not... Trying to look into the matrix. Okay, how about R? R! A-R-E, okay. Oh my god. You did not just put "you are cute." You did not just put "you are cute." Is that what this is? I will die. Cove? You were so bold. You risked the biscuit, man. You risked such a biscuit.
That's another one.
You? Oh.
You're really close.
You? Why?
Yeah.
A.
You're definitely gonna get it.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. You are cute. That was the phrase that Cove had spent so long settling on. You stared at it. A few correct letters in, you had a feeling you knew what the phrase was. Still, you felt butterflies in your stomach at seeing it, clear as day on the paper. You took in the words for a moment longer. Then you looked up at Cove. He had trouble meeting your shocked gaze, a smile settling awkwardly on his lips. His next words left him in a mumble.
I mean...
It was all I could think of at the time.
You fell backwards. I probably would have, like, tried to play it like, ha, you got me, because it's not real, right? You leaned over and gave him a slight shove, a puff of laughter leaving you. And no, you're breathtaking. I don't even know what to squeak. Cove smiled a bit more, clearly still feeling awkward about the move he pulled. He turned away from you, his cheeks tinted pink. A moment passed between the two of you. Now would be the perfect time to change the subject, but you didn't. He didn't either. Things started feeling a bit more personal all of a sudden. You looked into Cove's ocean eyes and saw yourself staring back. I don't know what to do. My brain has stopped. Did you mean it? Do you really think I'm cute? Cove didn't crack a smile or tell you he was joking. He just firmly kept his gaze.
Yeah.
Finally, he broke the eye contact.
I've heard at some point you're supposed to start liking types of people. Guys or girls or whoever.
I don't know.
I haven't really noticed that yet. Nothing's changed. Not in a big way, not for everybody. Maybe I have to grow up more. But at least with...
You waited, but he trailed off. He wasn't going to keep talking. You glanced down. You were so close to hearing what he had to say. You shook off the strangeness of the situation and tried to be supportive. Maybe you just don't like anybody. Or maybe you like all types of people. That's normal too. Cove seemed to appreciate that thought, if the smile that appeared on his lips was any indication. But the expression was quick to disappear. He peered over at you, looking nervous.
Okay, what about you? What kind of guy, person do you like?
He winced and seemed to be mentally kicking himself for saying it like that. Ugh. You considered his question carefully. Did you know who or what you liked? Well, I kind of started early. But it would be specific cases and situations. But there was only one person I'd ever had romantic feelings for. But specifically, when it came to how you felt towards boys, you found them attractive. You thought you'd be happy to be with a guy someday. You found them attractive, but you hadn't thought about being with a guy. You weren't physically interested, but you'd be happy to have a romantic relationship. You generally weren't interested in guys, but there were special exceptions. Man, there are so many options for how to customize yourself. Yes, top one. And how you felt towards girls, yeah, I'm not interested in girls that way. I can look at a girl and be like, man, she's beautiful, but it's just like a comment. It's not... I'm not physically or romantically interested in girls, so I'll go to I'm not interested in girls. For people who aren't exclusively male or female, I also not really interested in someone non-binary either. You returned your attention to Cove. He was waiting patiently for your response. Sorry, I had to stare into the Matrix for a bit. I mean, he kind of opened up to us, so I think it's only fair that we explain. He listened intently, taking in every word as you tried to convey how you felt. He definitely perked up a bit when you mentioned having some interest in romantic relationships. Then he scratched the back of his head, sheepish.
I'm not really sure how we ended up talking about all this when we started out just playing hangman. But it was good, I think.
The conversation had a mind of its own. I think so too. Cove chuckled a little bashfully. He glanced around, clearly scrambling for something else to say. Yes, we're just gonna move on swiftly from that. Okay, sounds good.
So, have you heard from Lee recently?
I have. The conversation took a lighter turn after that, and it felt like you got closer that afternoon. Finally, the blazing sun began to set. To your relief, the air cooled down a bit as a result. You pulled yourself off the floor, as did Cove with some minor complaint. You both stretched your arms, groaning, and yawned into your hands. You glanced out your window briefly, taking in the soft reds, pinks, and purples of the late afternoon sky. Somehow, you had made it through the scorching hot day in one piece. Cove turned towards you, motioning towards your window with his chin.
Wanna go outside? It might be better out there than it is here now.
Sure. The two of you took your time heading downstairs. You stopped briefly to grab a drink of water, then continued on your way. You stepped outside, one after the other, your destination being the familiar hills behind your house. This time of day, it was quiet outside. The flowers blew gently in the wind, petals trembling but stubbornly hanging in there. You felt the breeze cool your heated skin and you relaxed your shoulders. Cove closed his eyes, releasing a deep breath.
I really love it out here.
That's surprising. I do too. Cove smiled. Tendrils of his hair danced with the wind. A beat passed, but his gaze didn't stray from your own. His voice was impossibly soft when he spoke up again.
Molly.
I'm glad I met you, Molly. You're really important to me, you know?
That's so nice of you to say. I feel the same. Your voice came out equally delicate. From the way his features brightened, though, you knew he heard you. Then Cove reached over and held your hand without another word. Let's go! Yes! Oh, I love it. Even as the sun disappeared completely and the sky darkened, you and Cove remained side by side for as long as you possibly could. Ah!